And the Grenadines. WEFM is SDG.
23 minutes on to 11 o'clock here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You're locked on to WEFM 99.9, the Clean Fresh Sound, and this is your It's Your Turn program. Remember, It's Your Turn is an interactive program, so the numbers to call are 457-9997 if you're calling from a local landline, 532-9997 if you're calling from a digital cell phone, or you can call us or send us a message on WhatsApp at 457-9997. Today's It's Your Turn program is being hosted by Mr. Joel Providence and Mr. Philbert John. Good morning to you, Joel.
Thank you very, very much, Karen. It's good to be back on WFM. I've been away for quite some time, and I've been offered the opportunity to appear as a guest host on today's program. So I'm glad to be back at WFM. It's a place where I spent many a Sunday. Since going back as long as since 1997, I think. So it's good to see you, P. John.
Good morning and welcome back.
Thank you very much. I think we have lots of things to talk about, and I trust that we'll have a very interesting program. And I certainly invite persons who are listening to the program to stay with us, stay tuned, and please seize the moment to call if they have an important contribution or not so important. Please make their contribution to the discussions that we'll be having today. We hope to have one or maybe two guests on the program, and we will announce these persons in a short while. But in the meantime, we have the usual preliminaries to touch base on, and I would certainly begin, P. John, by inviting you to make some opening comments.
Well, I just want to say good morning to our listeners. It's a beautiful Sunday. It belies what is happening in the world. You wouldn't think that we are living in so much critical times, but we are. And we want to invite you to stay with us, listen, make a contribution, and so on.
Yes, as you said, it's a beautiful Sunday. A lot of things are happening in the world, and we are part of the world, and very much lots of things are happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well. And as I just turned on my phone a short while, and I go ahead and note, I just said, so the headline, breaking news, a Connery man killed and a teenage girl is a suspect. So I think that the frequency of murders, the murder rate is beginning to step up a little bit. And we trust that something can be done to reverse this, and all of us have a role to play in this, and we certainly would like to see a change in the trend. We don't have any more information at this point, and we can perhaps, before the program is through, maybe have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about it. But in the meantime, I think that we have things to talk about. Hopefully, we can look for some positive news, some positive matters to talk about. But unfortunately, it's not there. One of the things I'd like to say, P. John, is that you're aware of the Artemis.
Yes.
And so, and the fact that the journey around the moon and back, and it was piloted. It was a 4-astronaut team on board, very much DEI as the persons in the United States Republican Party would like to say, but maybe not necessarily on this occasion. Virtually, they had a Canadian, a woman, and as well as a Black American who was actually the main pilot on this mission. And his name is Victor Glover. But what I found when I heard on the news is that actually his mother is actually of Caribbean descent.
Okay.
of Caribbean stock. She regards herself as being a Caribbean American. And it would be interesting to find out a little bit more about him as a result. But certainly glad to hear about him and his contribution and his role and a recognition of people like him, or people like us, and what we can continue to in the further advancement of science.
Could you recall where you were during the first moon landing back in the 60s?
Yes, I think so. I believe that there are two short memories that I have. Is one had to do with a grammar school having a speech. We call it speech evening or something. It's sort of how it's called. And the other one was actually getting home and hearing about the moon landing and so forth.
I could recall standing in my yard someplace looking up.
Oh, you're looking up? Okay, so, yeah.
That was it. I think that was around 67 there, about
69.
69, 67, yeah.
It's interesting with the moon landing, that the first one, and there is the view that has been put out from more than one source, that the moon landing as it is, as we know it to be, did not take place. But we would not necessarily get it delving too much into that. But we know what had transpired. That by and large, this is something that came out of the Cold War. And Russia and the United States was in this battle. And the Russia virtually had beat the United States in having the first man into space. I think it was Yuri Gagarin or something like that was the first person in space. The first American, I think, was the John Glenn, who later became a senator. Yeah. And then around 1962, I think the President John F. Kennedy had made the declaration that before the end of this decade, that the United States will have a man on the moon. And it's just so determined that a man was going to be on the moon. And that's voted. But the questions still, and theories and conspiracies and so on still abound. And you have to read each story with an open mind and come to your own conclusion, though limited that you and I may be in terms of our understanding and appreciation of how these things work and so forth. But that was how it was. And then we know all what would have transpired since then. And then the program just virtually was held in abeyance for a very long time yeah. Until, well, we see what is happening now. But the whole objective and purpose is it's sometimes you ask why can commit so much funds when there's so many things in the world today, on land, on sea, under the sea, that we need to resolve and so forth. And of course, we have this issue, which we will talk about shortly, as to what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz as a part or a derivative of the war on Iran. But it just shows the contradiction that we face, Pijan. First, with the world, we're talking about the greatness of mankind and our ability to extend our frontiers and go into space beyond the Earth's moon and back. And then there are some fundamental issues here, which shows that really this world is actually a relatively small place, and that the global dynamics are actually showing that any major event that takes place and that impacts 1, 2, or 3 of the global powers, or even the mid-level powers, as Prime Minister Carney of Canada would say, that we are impacted. And this is something that we need to talk about as well. Maybe we could just touch on it briefly, and personally wish to think about it, reflect on it, and call in. Now you have a situation now where the crude oil prices have gotten up to it got as high as $126 per barrel. Brent crude. It's now maybe back down to just a little bit over 100 and so forth. But based on the declarations or the statements made today, it is likely to rise again. Well, what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz is going to impact us directly. And sometimes we go to the gas station, we see the pump, and we see that our gas, as far as I'm aware, is still at $13.22, I think, per gallon for gas. And we think that we're comfortable. Yes, our electricity rates and so forth, fuel surcharges, they have been high for an extended period, but there's not been a further spike as such recently. So we're not necessarily paying attention to that. We're just simply waiting to see what is happening in the days and weeks and months ahead. But it is very likely, and I think it's something that we should really be concerned about, because these things, what happens in the East, in terms of in the Strait of Hormuz, there's a latency effect that it doesn't impact. It may impact prices in certain futures exchanges and so forth, futures markets in one way, but in terms of what happens in terms of the retail price and so forth, eventually it really escalates, galvanizes itself to a particular level. 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks later, and then it takes a while for those prices to reverse. I'm told that maybe as many as 130, 140 oil tankers would go through the Strait of Hormuz. Now they're 5, 6, and 7. And based on the directive of the President of the United States, until further notice, they're supposed to be 0. So that is to squeeze the Europe. Everybody's going to get squeezed, including Iran, including China, including everybody, and so on. And that 20%, yeah, you may say it's only 20% or 23% or whatever the case might be, but the implications are great, because if you remove 20% of what you have to go and find an alternative source. Let us say that the European states, they go to the US and they go to the Gulf ports, as we go to the Gulf of America, as President Trump has now renamed the Gulf of Mexico, and so on. So Louisiana and Alabama, Texas, and so forth. Now, what is going to happen in terms of the price, and not just in terms of price, is in terms of availability, or what might we get available to us. So it's not a case where we say, well, okay, we don't rely on oil that's coming out of the Middle East or West Asia. It is a case now that the whole world is wanting to get from the same source, or the same sets of sources reduced. And as a consequence, supply and demand, the price is going to go up, and people are going to manipulate the whole dynamics of that industry in such a way that people like ourselves will suffer. It is something, therefore, that we have to begin to plan for. It may have implications, not just in terms of how much you pay for gas at a gas station at Annesville or in Kingston or anywhere else. It has implications for everything. It has implications for electricity. It has implications for the price of bread. It has implications for the price of rice, sugar, as the boats that are freighting some of these products, the freight rates will go up, and that will be passed on through the system to the consumer. It has implications for tourism. Yes, so some persons may say, well, okay, we can still travel to the Caribbean, but airfares may actually go up. So what are we prepared for the aftermath of what is taking place now? And I think it just requires a discussion. And it even and a discussion today. Now we have just had a budget in St. Vincent 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. But I think that the time the economic planners should, I assume, have met at a local level, a sub-regional level, at the level of the OECS, and even regionally, and so on, to discuss what is taking place and what is coming down the tube towards us in the months ahead. This is not to say that you're trying to be like a prophet of doom and gloom, but this is more than likely the reality and so on. It is the latency effect of this war that is taking place in West Asia and so on that is going to impact all of us. And I think it is something that we need to determine what we're going to do today as a short-term measure, and then we have to find a long-term or intermediate fixes, and we have to go look again and see where we are in terms of renewable energy sources. And even with that, as we mentioned before, that is still not enough, because even with renewables and so on, that may help to reduce the cost of certain things. If we're into production and so on and require a great deal of energy, or at the gas pump, and in terms of the electricity and so on, and Vinlec and so forth. But that renewables by itself is not going to change the visitor arrivals to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are so grateful to know that, we're happy to know that 120,000 plus visitors came to St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 2025. That's a record. And it has placed ourselves with these numbers in a particular grouping zone to say, well, okay, we are not just on the outside, on the fringe of the regional or global tourism industry, but we can now be active participants. And this is where we can go. Once we are satisfied in terms of what our objectives would be, in terms of what kind of numbers, how much we can handle, and so forth, what it would mean to in terms of our revenue, the impact on our GDP, and so forth. This is where we are. Now, what is this war and the aftermath of this war going to cause? What impact is going to have on our tourism industry and everything else? But all of us have to be prepared for its aftermath, its consequences, and we have to do what we must. And starting point is for the players that be the policymakers, get together at whatever level and make a determination as to what scenarios are likely to think, and look at the different degrees of impact, and then say, this is the response if it is scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3, and say where it goes from there. This is what I would say, I hope would be done. Now, someone may say that Joel's songs are all negative, but I do believe that is at least, even if it turns out to be an exercise that may not be really, does not turn out to be the reality in tomorrow's world, it's an exercise that needs to be done. We spoke before the program started, Pigeon, you also mentioned about the situation at CARICOM level and so forth. Now is the time when CARICOM needs to be strong, be united, be in purpose, in focus, in terms of its focus, its action, and everything like that. And now there seems to be this particular force that, or undercurrent, that seems to want to mash up or to create cracks, fissures within CARICOM. I don't know if you want to comment.
Well, I'm just concerned about the back and forth between Trinidad and what appears to be the rest of CARICOM. The rhetoric seemed to be inflammatory, which is a surprise to me. I don't know what is the situation between Kamala Besasa Basad. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we can just go back to the heads of government conference in St. Kitts Nevis, right? And at that meeting that was supposed to take place in Nevis, which they were supposed to take the decision on the reappointment of the Secretary General, Dr. Carla Natalie Barnett.
What is Trinidad's problem with Barnett?
Well, it seems as if that they really don't have a major problem with Dr. Barnett. But for whatever reason, it seems as if it may appear as if there want to be a frustration of the process. Maybe I may not have the information on that particular question where Dr. Barnett is concerned, but I believe it is just a bit of just frustrating the process, because if we were to go, well, you heard the statement of the leader of the opposition here in St. Vincent, Dr. Gonsalves, on the question, and virtually as indicated and supported by others, that the foreign minister is Mr. Sobers, I think his name, Sean Sobers, I believe, that it was clear, it seemed to be that it was not the intention for Trinidad to participate in this vote, or this discussion and vote on the reappointment of Dr. Barnett, but as the president of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali, stated that in terms of what transpired 3 years ago and what transpired recently in St. Kitts and Nevis, that CARICOM, they followed all the required procedures, protocols, and he's very satisfied that everything was correct and proper with regard to the appointment and so forth. I don't understand exactly what is happening, but you know that there may be certain undercurrents taking place, and more knowledgeable men and women than me or you maybe, who may wish to comment specifically on this particular issue. But it seems to be one thing after next as to why is it that Trinidad and Tobago seem to have taken this stance against CARICOM as a whole. The only thing in response to your question a short while ago, the only thing that I can acknowledge is the statement made that when the Trinidad national was arrested, and as they say, kidnapped in Barbados, a hotel in Barbados, and returned to Trinidad. I prefer not to call names and so on now, and so on. Returned to Trinidad, stated arms dealer, and so forth, that the Trinidad government, and the then government now, afterward, who headed by Kamala Besasa, who subsequently had actually launched a protest with the fact that the CARICOM intelligence arm, which is Impacts, they had a role to play in it, and they had launched a protest, and they felt that they were ignored by the Impacts and ignored by the Secretary General, Dr. Barnett. And I believe it is things like that, that for some reason, in the end, the arms dealer, the Trinidadian, he was exonerated, and it seemed to be so many other things along the way, and which I don't have the information on in detail, so I'd rather not comment on that right now. But it seemed to me it is one thing after next that seemed to be surfacing all the time, and so forth. And we do hope, though, that while some persons may comment that Trinidad contributes the largest slice of funds to the operations of the CARICOM Secretariat and its arms. And others argue that Trinidad is also the greatest beneficiary in terms of the trade that takes place and so forth. And the fact that they have the benefit of not having to pay the common external tariff, which is generally 15%. So therefore, their products can enter our markets without that 15% extra tariff being imposed, and therefore compete against goods from extra-regional sources and so on. So that advantage allows Trinidad to have a good presence in our markets. And as you know, energy is something that is either subsidized or certainly at a low cost in Trinidad, which allows Trinidad to be very competitive in terms of the production of certain goods and so forth. And it gives them that position regionally in terms of trade. But the position I think it should not be one of Trinidad should look for any excuse to hop off the bus, nor should anyone look to say, let's show Trinidad the door. That should not be the case. We should see it as a situation where it's a temporary mix-up, misunderstanding, maybe more than that, but certainly a clash of personalities. But at the end of the day, that 50 plus years of CARICOM, I think we have a call. 50 plus years of CARICOM. We've also had dealings with CARIFTA going back since right after the Federation closed off in 1962. That we should not be looking for any little excuse to be closing the doors on any member state who for whatever reason might want to exit, or who you feel that they're not playing ball. Rather, that we should demonstrate that we are together, that there are too many big issues around impacting all of us, that we should really stick around. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning. It's your turn. Welcome.
Yes, good morning, people.
Yes.
What I want to say is listening to all this, Lance Chapman here.
Hey, Lance, good morning to you.
Morning to everyone. What noticed that the Saudi Arabians have reopened the East-West pipeline, which carries 70,000 or a lot of oil through that pipeline that they have. And I'm wondering if, with all the doom and gloom we have facing us, do you think that this new move by Saudi Arabia to reopen that pipeline will affect us in a positive or manner going forward?
Well, my view on that is that it's not going to, it will help, it will have some impact almost immediately, but not the kind of impact that it's going to have. What my understanding through the pipeline and the load and so forth, it is not likely to fill the void of that 20 to 23%.
Also,
It will only address maybe about 5 or 6%. It can only, in terms of capacity, it will only address maybe about 25% of what the Strait of Hormuz can actually allow through.
Also, the Americans have sent their Marines to clear all them landmines, them sea mines. And what they've done, what the Khomeinian people have done, is they have laid these sea mines in a position where it's in the middle of the strait. And what they're doing is they're pulling boats on, because remember it's 21 miles at the closest point. So what they're doing is they're pulling their boats against the shores so that the passage is decreased. So it's kind of a ticklish situation there, but I'm glad to hear that the Americans are trying to clear those sea mines, and I think they have robots and things that will do that job. So I don't think this is going to last very long. I could be, positive and in these things. Anyhow, I just thought I'd add that to the conversation.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Lance. But yeah, on the one hand, they may try to address the issue of the sea mines and so forth. But the declaration of the President of the United States is that they're going to have an entire blockade of all traffic effectively immediately. So nobody in, nobody out.
But then there's the other situation here is with Venezuela, is that the Americans are going to start to refine oil from Venezuela. So I think what they're trying to say is that we have to buy all our petroleum products from them. So it's either one side or the other.
Well, basically that is where, as far as I'm aware, that our fuel comes from basically from U.S.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah, in any case.
Okay, so I don't think we have anything to lose anyway.
Anything to lose?
Well, I can't imagine if we come back to the same.
Yes.
Structure.
But the question still remains of availability.
Okay.
So you may need X units.
All right.
But
then
then all after you'll get X minus 20% or 30%. Okay, Lance, thank you very much for calling.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about the CARICOM issue. There's a number of things that we can talk about there, but I believe, Pijan, that I may actually have to step outside just for a short minute. But we still invite persons, if you want to participate in the program. If you're calling by WhatsApp, it's 457-9997. Or you can call direct the landline.
Same number.
Yeah, 457-9997. Or there's another number, 532-9997 Digicel. Please feel free to interact. We do plan to have some guests in our studio. We will be talking about a local issue and local event which took place a couple of evenings ago, but we'd also want to speak with someone as who would have a different perspective, a particular unique perspective on what is taking place in the Middle East or the West Asia as it is called, and who is a Vincentian national, but will have a particular perspective on the matter. And I think it would be interesting to hear what he has to say on the matter in a short while. But we would certainly look forward to hearing from him shortly. We'll be certainly back with you in terms of our two guests shortly. In the meantime, Pijan, what else has been happening on the local or regional scene? We had last evening, we had the launch of Vincy Mars. I don't know if you had a chance. So I doubt you would have been on the scene there. That took place at at Arnoldsville. It looked as if well organized. They built on what took place last year, and the attendance was good. The performances, I thought, were decent, and I was glad to hear some of the old school soca going back to the 2003, 2004, and so on, and seeing some of the artists from the recent past, including persons like Icon and so forth. So it good start. I can't say too much more, but I do believe that we're off to a good start. They use the caption of The Great Escape. I understand that Rodney Small had made a statement as to what the Great Escape meant, but I wasn't able to get an understanding of the whole reasoning behind it and so forth. They did a couple of innovative stuff, and I do hope that we would have a good and impactful carnival this year, in spite of what I would have just said a short while ago as to what we see coming down the tube in the next month, 2 months, or 3 months down the road. We don't know what, but we still have to live. We still have to do what we have to do, and so forth. So let us see how things will do. We have a country to build. We are Vincentians, we live here. We'll do whatever we have to do and so forth. And let's hope that there is success in every respect and so forth. But in the meantime, we do feel that we have to support and we have to critique and so forth. And there are a number of things have been. I don't necessarily want to change the topic in terms of what is good or what is not so good in terms of what is happening locally and so forth. But at the same time, it is something that I think that this is St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and 100,000+ of us have a responsibility to make the best of these 32 islands and keys.
Joel, the other thing of concern is the frequency of fires recently. Since the beginning of the year, we have had quite a number of inflagration, if you want to call it. What's the word again?
I think it's conflagration or something like that.
Conflagration, yes.
But it's a big word, so I just say, this is, I'm not talking about bushfires, we're talking about buildings of major fires, sometimes caused by maybe electrical issues or other reasons.
Do you get the sense that the authorities are in control of the situation? We don't hear much about the causes of these fires.
I think that information is very important. I think the information needs to be shared. I think that if the investigations are ongoing, I think then that should be communicated to the public. If a determination has been made as to the cause, or you have narrowed it down to 1 or 2 possible causes, then I think those should be stated and so forth. And it's gone. I think that the Minister of National Security made a statement with regard, for example, the Calico police station, that they've ruled out arson, I think. And that's fine. But as I say, in so far that there have been, I am aware of maybe about 4 or 5 fires recently. Maybe 4, starting with the Kittels private government school. Yeah. And then there was one somewhere out on the Windward side, and one in Kingstown, the one in Calico, and so forth. Maybe 4 or so. And there is the issue as well that someone would have raised as whether or not whether we are properly equipped to deal with the fires, to respond to the emergency that results, and whether or not administratively, in terms organizationally, whether or not the fire services should really be an autonomous body or semi-autonomous or independent of the police service. Many persons see that. Some persons see that fire service and police service are really two different purposes, and so they remit the DNA of the fire service is different to the police service, and they really perhaps should be separate. I don't know what's your view on that particular question.
Will it make much of a difference? The fires will start anyway.
Well, I think it could make a difference if, for example, as part of your, I'm not saying that it cannot take place now, but prevention now becomes a key part of the fire service, right, and so on. They say we are not just here to respond to 2, 3, or 4 fires every 4 months or 6 months or something like that. But I want to make sure that we have education. We out there talking to communities and so on a regular basis. We are doing inspection. We're going into not just government buildings. We're going into the private sector and so forth. We're looking at all the issues, and also letting businesses and all institutions say, these are the preventive measures that you need to have in place, so that even if if something takes place, that you can deal with that fire before it gets out of hand, and so forth. And so there are things that can be done. There are other functions, as we see in the United States, that the fire services perform. They do like rescue service and so forth. But by and large, I think that it's, for whatever reason, it was considered, I do believe, at some time in the past, that there should be a separation of the fire services and the police services. And then there was a change of heart or change of mind on the particular question and so forth. But I think it is something that should at least be looked into, and the powers that be at least to say, okay, we have considered the matter, and then for these reasons, we are going to leave the status quo, but this is what we're going to do to strengthen the way how things are done. Or we are going to change the status quo, and this is with the intention of getting better outcomes, this is what we're going to do, and so forth, for one reason or another. And I think that it is something should be done, and so forth. But it should not be a case where it appears that, and this is not something that is applicable to these 3 or 4 or 5 events of the last few months. I remember a couple of years ago and so on, we had fire trucks not being able to access fire hydrants and so forth, and it took a long time, and that kind of thing, and so forth. And we just need to, where would fire hydrants be positioned and so forth. Whatever it is, let us maybe say, well, okay, what is the new narrative? What is the new code on dealing with fires and so forth? And so that at least persons can have a fair degree of comfort and so on, where that is concerned, going forward. There was an article on the back page of the Vincentian newspaper of Friday, April the 10th. And it says, lots of money in the bank, but not enough loans. And the article, it doesn't state an author, so I believe it is an article written by someone from the Vincentian, which basically makes reference to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank Governor, Dr. Timothy Antwine. And basically he's saying that the banks are too liquid, that there's the Eastern Caribbean commercial banks are actually holding billions of dollars in excess liquidity, and they're not lending it to, it's not, their art is not being accessed for one reason or another by regional, local and regional, sub-regional businesses. And he actually made a point that, for example, saying that the financial institutions actually hold as much as $28 billion within their loan portfolio, holding deposits of $28 billion, while their total loan portfolio stands at 16 billion, meaning that there's as much as 10, 11, 12 billion dollars. Well, you're not going to lend out everything, but certainly there's liquidity there and so forth. And you made a point about the partial guarantee scheme that was introduced. I can't remember when it was introduced. And I do believe, and this partial guarantee scheme was to address the question of risk and to inspire confidence among both the banks and the loan applicants, the business places in terms of that there's money to be borrowed, there's money to be loaned, and that you can go ahead and develop your business. You can go ahead and develop your business regardless, with feeling confident that there's some degree of protection because the risk is reduced to a significant extent. Now, that was, and I believe that the partial loan guarantee scheme, I think was started at around 60%. And Dr. Antwine is actually declaring that they're also prepared to push the guarantee of qualifying loans, that is, up to be 75 or 80%. And now that is a fantastic thing. It can't be 100% guaranteed, but certainly once and then make sure that the conditions and so on are met. But certainly that is significant and so forth, because we really need to engage the business community, and there are a number of things that need to be done and so forth to get local businesses, small, medium size, a little bit bigger than larger than medium size or whatever, or enterprises that have been around for a long time but they're undercapitalized and so forth, and they may need to take on certain things and so forth, that they can go with some degree of confidence and go and borrow money from a local institution and so forth. I know that we've been talking as well about, and I have spoken personally about the role of having the government setting up banks I'm speaking specifically of development banks and so forth. And I say, maybe with a situation like this, and provided that if some of these funds are addressing what we refer to as underserved areas of enterprise and so forth, that the role of the development bank may not be as pivotal as it was years ago, especially if there's a system in place where the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the system is there to have a partial guarantee scheme that can guarantee as much as 75 to 80%. of the loan, and the risk is therefore, as a consequence, as reduced, and so forth. And we talked about, there's so many things we can talk about, like people involved in the creative industries, where people feel that risk is great, and so forth. You can go and access this loans in this regard. In certain communities where you feel that the market size is unknown or uncertain, it's for export reasons, export purposes. Sometimes you don't know what is happening as you tread across lands that you're not entirely certain about. And of course, and they build up a regional expertise to help to inform small businesses, large, not so large businesses, and so forth. They inform them as to how best to develop their structure, to be clear in terms of what their business plan should be, what the risk would be involved, what they need to put in place, and so forth. And let's go with this. And here it is when we talk about capital, or the lack of, has been a problem for businesses owned by nationals of St. Vincent and Grenadines, or nationals of the OECS. It's not, here is the governor of the central bank, so that's not supposed to be a problem. And this is something I think that needs to, persons need to talk about. It should not just be on the back page of a newspaper. It should not be in the front page and in the minds of everybody at all levels. The Ministry of Finance in St. Vincent and Grenadines, St. Lucia, and so forth, and the Chamber of Commerce, and everybody should be talking about it. And so that if, for example, a radio station in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as you mentioned, it got impacted by a fire, unfortunately, there could be an immediate response mechanism that is that kicks in, where you can say, well, okay, as a result, I need to refinance right away. I need to get going, insurance, notwithstanding, and so forth. Adjusters coming out, adjusters not coming, notwithstanding. I need to be back on my feet in no time at all, and so forth. So this is where I want to go, and so forth. And these things must be available so people can approach the world of business with a kind of confidence. And that is what will push this economy. And in light of what is happening within the world today, and this is something I would like to talk about more often, and so forth, is that this is not just for the big and mighty in one hegemonic power in this side of the Atlantic, or in the other side of the Atlantic, but it is for us, for all to do that we can work together, and these little things can actually help to propel us. I say all of this in the context, even though I'll come back to another subject, to welcome to our studios Mr. Dwight Bing Joseph. Welcome back to the studios of WEFM.
Thank you. It's been a while. It's been many, many years since I've been here. Many, many years. Thank you. And I'm here with somebody special that I don't know if you know. A lot of persons know, because I don't speak about her publicly. I've never really, that side of my life I've never really shared. And Pigeon may be surprised, and I know I'll get the response that I normally get when people meet her since she's been here. She came in on yesterday. This is my mother.
I do know it. Yes, I do know it. Well,
Thank you.
welcome to WEFM.
Thank you so much. Haslin has educated my son.
Pigeon is looking like in shock. Right?
No. You
know, Pigeon
yeah.
like, Pigeon look at Pigeon.
I'm shocked.
You are? Well, thank you. But get over it. It's okay.
Particularly at the youthful look.
It's an indictment on me.
There's someone trying to calling, but I'll just just to hold for a couple of minutes because let's get the introduction out of the way. First of all, please accept our most heartfelt regret on the events of 2 or 3 mornings ago.
Yes.
And we certainly, this is not something that we would want to wish on, certainly not on you, a friend of WEFM and personal friend for a very long time. And we trust that you would be able to bounce back. I understand that certain, well, I will allow you to speak on the issue.
Okay.
First of all, what would have transpired, and then you can speak generally about as to what actions you have taken since.
All right. While driving down with my mother, I was telling her I am feeling nervous. And she said, "Why would you feel nervous?" I said, "I'm not used to being on this side." First of all, I'm used to be on that side, what you're doing. And I feel a bit, but it's been a really tough, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how to put it into words. I will start at when I got the call at around midnight on Thursday night. My phone was constantly ringing, and anybody know me, they know I'm not a night person. On my personal life, I'm not. I go to bed by 8 o'clock, or most times before that. And the phone just kept ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. And I turned over and I said, who could be calling me at this hour? And I picked up the phone and I saw it was Demas, Nick, who does jerk, the pork in Paul's Avenue as the restaurant, Greg Nick's. I said, but why is he calling me at this hour? I still looking at the phone and I'm not answering. I'm saying, why is he calling me at this hour? And I still didn't answer it because I once I'm home, I'm home. My life has sort of evolved in a particular way, Pigeon, where I'm known as the man on the Bing on the radio, but as soon as I get out of that studio and I get into my home life and family life, that shuts down, and I don't open that door, for obvious reasons anymore. And so I decided to answer, and there was Nick Demas on the phone. Bing, bing, bing. There's a massive, massive fire going on down here. You need to come down. The fire's next to the radio station. I can't. It's a big, 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 big fire. Big, big, big fire. Smoke, a lot of smoke. You need to come down. You need to come down. I put down the phone and I processed it a while. And I turned and I said, he just said that there's a fire. Then I called him back. I said, where exactly is the fire? He said, the house, the building right next to you is on fire. And the fire is blazing really, really high. And you need to come. So I said, could you tell me, how what's going on? Is it touching the building? Is it going over to the building? He said, man, you just need to come. I said, is the fire? What's happening with the fire? Anybody there? He said, I don't know. Just come. I found other people. I heard Evangelist, a lady who lives on the opposite side, shouting, and he heard her calling, Ipa. Come. And he heard us screaming. and just come, just come. So immediately I got up and I said, I gotta go, I gotta go. But still I am not thinking what I was going to see. I still, because if I may step back a bit, let me put things into context, right? The last 2 months of my life, and I'm saying this publicly now, has been one of the worst time of my life. I, first of all, got into an accident with my favorite vehicle. It was written off. That accident, I was driving and I just passed out. And the vehicle ran into a truck ran into the vehicle, I don't know. And it's written off. That's 2 months ago. Then on Wednesday of this week, I'm driving home. But from that time, I wasn't on radio because I wasn't well. I had some injuries and I just wasn't well. And the doctor asked me, didn't ask me, said, Bing, you need to take at least a month because internal injuries, we need to get scans done. We need to find out what's happening inside and all of that. So he said, I'm going to insist that you take a month and, have yourself checked out and all of that. So I was at home like once a week, or I would go into the office, but I would always be in contact via phone with the office, how things are going, what's happening, what needs to be done, whatever. So I wasn't present. That was the time I wasn't on radio for that time. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to go back on the radio right after Easter, which was the Wednesday. And I had an interview that I was going to do with Major Leacock. That was the interview that I did. The Tuesday, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The Tuesday? Yes, it was a Tuesday. Yes.
The after Easter Monday.
Yes, I did that interview. And everything was supposed to kick back in and I get going again on air. Wednesday, I had an interview with Rodney Small with the Carnival Development Committee. And I had an interview with the Jazz Festival from St. Lucia. So those 2 interviews on Wednesday. And as usual, after I get off the radio, I come out, go into the office. My usual routine when I'm at work, go into the office, settle down, start doing whatever, meetings and all of that. And Wednesday, I decided, I think I need to get home because I don't know, I just wanted to go home. And I caught up and I told my staff, I'm going home. And I left. And on my way home, I passed out again, driving. And I remembered turning a corner, and then the next thing, the vehicle was in a wall, in a post, and there were a lot of people around the vehicle. That was Wednesday of last week. This week? No, last week. It's Sunday, Mom. Yeah. And I'm like, but of course, everybody knows I'm a diabetic, and I struggle with low blood sugar because I was going back on radio Tuesday morning. I hurried out the house early in the morning, that interview. I didn't have breakfast. Same thing on Wednesday, hurried out, no breakfast. Not by anyone's fault, but I just wanted to just get out and just go in. And my plan was to have some breakfast while I was in the office, but that didn't happen. So I going home and I started feeling a bit sleepy, and then I said, you know what, let me just get home instead of doing what I should have done, which is pull off and just find out what's happening, get some sweets or get a chocolate or something. And my mother chastising me for not having these things in my vehicle, and other family members. And so that was Wednesday. I crashed again another vehicle. And the doctor came home and he said, Bing, you gotta stop. You gotta stop. My children who are all overseas in Canada, started complaining to Louise that Daddy needs to get a driver. Daddy needs to have. We need to get a driver. And I'm saying, no. I mean, I'm not at that age. I'll take care of myself from there. So that's that aspect of what happened last week. So let's move forward now to the fire. On my way down to the station, I called Major Leacock, the Minister of National Security. I said, Major, there's a fire in the vicinity of the station in Paul's Avenue. Are you aware of it? He said, yes, Bing, I'm on my way there. I called Buju, Bailey as well too.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you have any information? He said, I'm gonna get there now. And by the time I got there, Major was already there on the scene. And I saw a lot of people, and there was one fire truck. And three of my staff members were standing because they had carried off.
How did you get there?
I drove.
You drove?
Yes, myself.
Okay.
Yeah. At that time I didn't want to, at time of the morning, well, after midnight, I drove there. And there were some staff members there, and I'm saying, how did you guys get here so soon? Some of them don't have vehicles, a couple of them have vehicles. One of them said, Shady, who everybody knows, who works with me in the morning, he goes fishing. So he said he was out fishing, and someone called him at that time, and he came, and he tried reaching me, but he wasn't able to get to me. And when I got there, I saw the building, the structure, right in front, just before me, engulfed in flame, like really gone. And the fire department looked as if they had it under control. And I looked at the building and I saw like 6 air-conditioned units to the studio on the outside burned. And I say, okay, cool, that's fine. I can handle that. That's just 6 air-conditioned units. And, everybody there trying to still work on the structure before that's right next to mine. And, I felt safe. Everybody was comfortable. And I said, can we get in? The police said, one of the fire officers said, no, inside is filled with smoke. I said, well, how does the smoke get in? And he said, well, they don't want to open the door because if oxygen get in, it's whatever is in there, it's gonna get worse. So I said, well, there's normally 2 windows in the back by the bathrooms, male and female bathrooms. They are normally cracked open. So if your concern is that, then, there's the oxygen in there. While I'm saying this, and I must publicly commend the fire sergeant, Phillips is his name. He was, and everyone, as soon as I got there, everyone started telling me, this guy really, really worked hard. When I saw the amount of smoke, then all of a sudden, everybody started pointing up, bing, bing, the roof is dropping in. And I looked up and I saw the roof of the building engulfed in flames. And I knew at that point what was going to happen. Still, the door, the entrance to go upstairs to the station was closed. Vinlec came, they disconnected the electricity, the door, of course, electronic locks. And I don't know who pushed open the door. And I think the fire guys pushed open the door. And Phillips, I said, I want to get in. And Phillips said, no, do you have a mask? I'm not going to allow you to get in there unless you have a mask on. You couldn't see anything. You couldn't see the stairs. You know, going up inside. You couldn't see the stairs. I said, I need to go. I need to see what's happening. I need to go. He said, Mr. Joseph, I can't allow you to go there. If you get a mask, I will consider it. By the time he turned around, I'm in the building. No mask, nothing. I looked behind me and I heard Shady's voice. And I heard Millennium Kid's voice and another staff member's voice. You can't see anything at all. Then I heard the fire, about 5 of them in the main studio, ponging on water, like the heavy hose on water in the main studio. At that point, I realized, okay, so the fire is in the studio, the main studio, and the ponging and the water from the hose. I still was very hopeful. And Shady said, do you want to go to your office to see what's happening in your office? I said, yeah, let's go to the office. The keys, open the office. Open the office, smoke, just like massive, engulfing smoke.
No fire.
No fire, no fire. You can't even see your hands. And Shady, I have a couch in my office, and Shady said he felt my bag on the couch. He said, you want your bag? I said, yes. I'm not seeing him, I'm just hearing his voice. He said, what about your laptop? I said, yes. He said, there's anything? And the fire people come, you got to get out, you got to get out. I said, I'm not leaving. I have a photograph in my office with my daughter and myself at our graduation in Canada. I said, I need to go back and get that. Everybody know me, they know my daughter is my life, my she's...
But you probably didn't think at the time that photograph, I'm sure you have a copy somewhere that you could easily have reprinted it.
I don't know where Louise got it. I remember the photograph being taken while we were in Canada at the graduation. I don't know if there was a copy, I don't know. It was just something that she said.
Okay.
So I don't know. I didn't know. But I knew I needed that photograph. There are other photographs in there with me going to Taiwan and Canada, other photographs, other things. But I said, I need to get that. And we got it. And the sergeant or whoever, he said, I'm not going to allow you. And I felt somebody tug me, hold me by my shirt and pull me. He said, you got to get out. Come out, you got to get out of the place. The fire is getting worse. And I don't even know how I got down the stairs. You couldn't see anything. And by the time I got outside, I saw the whole flame, everything, just the roof, everything engulfed. And those fire guys, we say things about our firemen and women, but I must say that I've never seen people put themselves at risk like that. They're trained, I know that's what they're trained to do, but those guys walked into that fire and they walked and they walked and they walked for hours and hours and hours.
And just 2 buildings there too.
Right, 2 buildings. Well, by that time, the other building was flattened, right? Which was a wooden house, right? That was gone. So it was they were just focusing now on the station. But the building, if you know, is concrete, right? the building belongs to Miss Richards. I'm a tenant in the building, right? So that structure is concrete. So the only little facade like windows and things that thing. But on the inside of the building, which where my life, everything that I've owned in my life, every saving, every resource, everything from this bankroll, that's why she say everything, that's where it is. All the modern equipment, the desk, you press a button and the desk come up, the most modern the speakers, the songs. When you're in that studio, you've been in the studio, it's a massive sound system. I wanted to do it that way because I know it's an urban station and I want my DJs to feel, and I said I didn't want no chairs in the studio. I don't want the DJs or announcers to sit in the studio to get too comfortable. I want the energy. So there was no chairs in the studio. There's announcer stand, DJ stand. If we have a special guest, there a couple of times Dr. Gonsalve, when he was Prime Minister, came and guest, brought in a chair, press a button, the desk goes down and I would sit with him. Beside that, there was never any sitting in the studio.
So what have you been able to salvage in the end?
Nothing.
So and the value, the thing that are of financial value and the thing of emotional value.
Yes.
And sometimes emotional value may mean more to you than the cost of replacing.
One thing that I got was the photograph.
You got the photograph
with myself and my daughter. That photograph meant a lot for me because my daughter, while at boarding school, sustained third-degree burns. And she was hospitalized for a while. And when she graduated, that meant a lot to me. She had several surgeries and all of that. And I took that photograph with her standing. And that was more than anything else.
Yes, someone is trying to call. But let me just you can't, let's see everything and then maybe just allow two calls and then we have 2 or 3 calls and then we'll close.
And when I finally got back into the building to take a look when the fire gone and the smoke, just a little smoke, and I walked into the studio, the main studio, and I saw every single thing was gone, like no computer and the microphones. I didn't even know these things that could burn and melt. Every single thing, Joel, was gone, everything. I walked around in the production department, the same thing, the production with the other equipments where you produce commercials, you do jingles, you do drops. Same thing, every single living thing gone. My operations manager, Mario's office, who's right next there, there are a couple pieces of equipment that was there, and there's a story behind that too, how that was salvaged. I don't know the genesis of these guys, which I'll tell you who they are. I don't know. Everything was wet. I don't know, but there was absolutely nothing, not even the floor. I remember I saw a video. One of my staff took a video while I was walking around, and I was there telling the firefighters, listen, underneath here where we standing, there's another floor. Jules built the studio, right? Jules from WEFM here. He built the floor, and with the soundproofing, you have a cavity. So the floor and another floor. So there's a space in between the floor, right? And all of the wires, lots of wires, and there's something called a snake which runs throughout the building back to IKTV into production, and I'm telling the guys, listen, underneath here, the firefighters, underneath here, there are lots of wires, electrical wires, all sorts of wires. You need, and they said, what do you mean? And then they said, it doesn't matter, the electricity is turned off, but let's consider those gone, because they've realized that the whole place is in hell. It's just, and at that point, I realized it was gone. It was gone in a matter of not even an hour. It was gone, Joel. And I really want to commend the people of Paul's Avenue. Lots of people came out during that hour of the morning, helped, who, our people already give advice, do this, do that, do that, I really want to commend our people, especially in Paul's Avenue. And I don't want to focus it all on myself too, but the gentleman next door, he lost everything. There's a mass camp in the back behind of me, high voltage. They lost everything as well too. He had that. This guy had
That's Kingsley College.
Yeah, he had just spent over $20,000 buying materials to prepare for the launch of Carnival yesterday. Everything. He lost every single thing. Lost. Lost. While standing there, after the fire went, the fire brigade left, all the fire officers went. I'm standing there and I'm sitting on the floor in the middle of the road. And one of my staff came to me and said, this fire is coming back. I said, what do you mean? He said, look. And I saw smoke. And we went over, and it's, like coals, when you have coals, and trinket of fire.
Yes.
Yeah, sparks, And then there in the back behind of that, there are lots of smoke coming up again, lots and lots of smoke. And that was when Kingsley, high voltage, that was when his fire was catching again. So I immediately jumped on the phone. I said, Ipa, could you, I don't know the number, could you get and he called them and they came back again. The fire department came back again and they did another, what they had to do. And it was, I have never experienced a fire personally. I've seen fires. I know of persons who have had fires, but I've never experienced what it's like to, within an hour, to just everything, you just lose everything. I know you're going to ask me a question that this morning we went to church and, speaking to Apollo Knights, who of course is NTRC, and he was telling me, this, that. He said, but I'm sure you have insurance, so don't worry about that, everything. And I heard you saying that as well too, despite the fact that you have insurance. Let me say this, I have no insurance. The building is insured, but the contents of the building is not insured.
Right.
So the building, which is owned by Metrosynth, that's covered, but I don't have content insurance. And people will say, well, why would you have all these expensive equipment in there and you don't insure it? I just don't know. I don't know. I never thought in my life that
you carry the risk.
Yeah.
You carry the risk yourself.
Yeah, I can't give an answer to that, Joel. So it's what the contents, what I have personally lost is close to $1 million.
I think it's over.
with the type of equipment and the, it's close to $1 million.
And there is no action, legal action that you can take
No.
against anyone who can say who
Who do I take? Who do I?
would have, as a result.
Who do I?
So in the meantime, you have staff.
That is what I want to talk about.
Yeah, so let's see we can get in the next 10 minutes.
Yes.
As we have another
So
segment to do.
now my staff, to me, is my world. And if you can go back to, and incidentally, it's I think it's around this time when Swagger, one of my staff members, was shot and killed.
Mm-hmm.
That devastated me, and my staff is like a family. We closely knitted together. It's not just people come to work and when they finish their shift they go home. It's not that. My administrative staff, it's not like I nurtured that because, as you know, I started in radio. Joel, I worked here, I worked at Hits FM, but before that, my passion and my love for radio came from when I was going to prep school, and I had an aunt who used to work at then 705 Radio. And every afternoon after school, prep school, I would have to go over to prep school to 705 Radio to wait to know. And one or two times they will allow me to go into the studio, and I was so fascinated. I was like, how are these people? How are these people? On mornings I'm driving to school and I'm hearing, and I'm saying, like, how are these people talking into this microphone?
And you're hearing it.
And you're hearing it wherever, how does this happen? And I would see, like, couple of names, Randy Dio, and I wonder if a couple of names. And they would all these buttons, and they'd speak into this microphone. That time they had spin this console,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing playing, and every time they want to talk, they would say, okay, hold a while. And I was just, and every time I go there, I always want to go into the studio. And then as I got a bit older, I got involved in the National Youth Council. And my passion grew even more because the National Youth Council had a program
on
called,
radio.
I can't remember.
Youth Challenge.
Challenge, yes, on Saturday mornings. And through Andrew Liverpool and Baffy Curtis King, then was the president, they gave me an opportunity. Once I went, the Saturday said, Bing, why don't come and come into the program when it's being recorded, because it's a recorded program. And I went and did the first recording, and that I was blown away. I heard back my voice the Saturday morning on the radio, after the recording. And that's when I said, that's what when I told my mother that's what I wanted to do, she looked at me like I was crazy. I told her, Mommy, I want to do that. She's sitting right here. She said, are you crazy? Even when I told my mother at the point when I wanted to get my own radio station, she's like,
even in this conversation and so others that you have not mentioned, you have faced more than a fair share of challenges
Many.
in your life.
Many.
You've carried some burdens that many would rather not have to face or even carry. But still, as we mentioned earlier on, like there's a group that out of Trinidad, the Ultimate Warriors, had a song called "The City Could Burn Down, but we jamming still." So I want to know with confidence that you're jamming still. So tell me where you are in terms of Boom 106.9 come tomorrow morning or next Monday and so forth. What's the situation?
Immediately after the fire, I went home and I just crashed. I was tired. went to bed, didn't talk, say anything to anybody. I woke up, it was in the night, evening, I think it was late, and it still didn't hit me. And then I think it was the next morning, it hit me, and I just fell, and just all my emotions. Then is when I realized that it had all gone. I called my mother, and my mother couldn't even get it. I was just bawling and bawling and bawling and bawling. And all she's saying, it's okay, honey, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And I just bawled and bawled and bawled and bawled. I fell on my knees. I don't know. I don't know, Joel. And then she came yesterday morning. You know, and I was saying last night how the stars lined up. She came yesterday morning, and I've been getting many phone calls. And to those persons who tried to reach out to me, let me apologize. And that I didn't respond, please. I really sincerely apologize. Calls, WhatsApp messages, many, thousands. The leader of the opposition, the Prime Minister, I want to apologize to you. I still have not returned your calls. I many, all sorts of people, all aspects of life, you know. And Jules Williams kept calling me. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to speak to anybody. I felt like you lost someone and you're in grief, and you just want to have that moment to grieve. And Jules kept calling, and he relentless, he won't give up. And my production manager, Mario, he's in Canada yes. At the moment, and I got a call from Mario. Jules is trying to reach you. Next thing I see, Jules on the call with Mario, WhatsApp. I said, Jules, I know you've been calling me, but I really wasn't up to it. He said, Bing, let me tell you something. I traveled on Monday or something like that. I have something to do. My mother is here at the moment. I said, Jules, no. He said, Bing, I'm traveling, and if I don't do it now, it's not going to get done until I get back. I said, what? He said, I want to get you back on air. My mother says, she said, it has to be done. I want to get you back on air this afternoon. It was yesterday. And I'm saying, Jules, I don't have the energy. And my mother's in the vehicle. We driving. We went somewhere yesterday. I took her down to show her the building. Because she came in and she didn't get a chance. I took her down to show her the station, and I have Jules on speaker, and my mother saying, listen, you got to do it. And Jules, you know how Jules is animated, and he uses a couple choice words at me to say, what's the matter with you? And my mother said, I said, Jules, you're on speaker. My mother is in the car. You got it. And then he said, oh, sorry, mom, sorry. And there's a conversation between Jules, myself, and my mother. And at the end of the conversation, Jules said, Bing, I am down here right now. I don't know where down here is. I am walking right now. I have Willis, Cookie. I can't remember all the names, but I gotta give the names. Because
so they were working on getting a station.
Yeah. And I need to say it because it's just how this is. It's just, and if my mother wasn't here, in addition to Jules, it would have never been done. He said, I'm here. I have Willis, Alex, Cookie, and Winston Jeffrey. And we are walking, and we're going to get you on air. Well, with my mother prompting, of course, you're going to get on air this afternoon. That was yesterday. before the night is finished. And we driving the radio in that particular vehicle I was driving. All was on boom, and I just heard music came up. We were driving, coming across a tarmac, I think it's somewhere there,
Yes.
and I was like, "What is that?" And just music came up, and then he said, "We here walking, and you, I'm gonna get you on air. Listen, I'm gonna get you on air." And mommy's pushing me, and she's pushing me, and she's pushing me. And she said, "Listen, Bing, whatever it takes, this is what I came here for. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to get you out of that dundrum that you're in." She said, "You got to get out of this state of depression. You got to get out of this state." And Jules, they in my A and my mother in my other A in the car, and then both of them started talking. So right now, if you put your radio on 106.9, you would hear music playing.
Yes.
If you tune in online, you would hear boom playing. And then Jules say, "What you hearing there? I know you may think it's stupid music, but I'm gonna hand it over to Mario in Canada."
Mhm.
And he did. Now, I am not a technical person. My staff, I'm a technical dumb. I don't even know how to turn on one of the equipment in my studio.
Mhm.
I'm not inclined in that way at all. This here is me, right?
So what's the plan for let's say tomorrow? Mario will be doing something. What's happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow is going to be what is happening now.
Music.
Music, just as my mother said, you have to have that present on air. As Jules said, "I'm leaving and we can get this done. We can get this done."
And you'll have some station IDs.
Station IDs, you would hear,
Yeah.
hear some messages, you would hear recorded messages as well too. Script, Mario would be reading some stuff all now. Those things are happening. So the station is really being programmed right now in Canada. Jules has put the station on air. I don't even know where it is. I don't even know.
Camden Park.
Somewhere in Camden Park.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
remember where in Camden Park.
Yeah.
So I don't even know where my station is, but my station is playing right now. If you switch, you'd hear it.
Yeah.
And he did it, and he said, "I'm gonna hand it over the server, put up the server and hand it over to Mario so Mario can control." So he passed it back over to Mario right now. So in order to, there are lots of advertisers, even though it's you would hear some ads in a couple of days running, but for now, you would just hear something. Also, additionally, Jules called me back and said, "But Bing, you didn't tell me that IKTV as well." So IKTV, Jules have got IKTV up as well too.
I may have to take this call, Bing, if you just allow me, just in case. Because hello, good afternoon.
Thank you, Joel. Good afternoon.
Yeah, greetings.
Greetings.
Oh, this
Is
is
this
your
Mr. Weeks?
yes.
That's right. I know I have to call you here because I now won't be able to speak to you elsewhere. As you don't tell the public you don't take calls.
Yes. My mother. I was properly flogged last night.
All right, certainly good to hear your voice
Yes.
between
Bing,
Mr.
Bing,
Weeks.
allow me, please.
Yes.
Bing, I want to say hello to that special lady next to you.
Oh, gosh.
I know how much you value this of being present with you. Good morning, Eslyn.
Good morning. Greetings.
Lanford Weeks here.
Yes. Nice to hear you, Weeks. Nice
Yes,
to hear
welcome
you.
home.
Thank you. I had to be
Bing,
here.
well, I just wanted to say hello and to let you know that I am with you. I feel your loss. And I'm here with you. I'm not going to take. I just wanted to make that contact with you. Thank you very much, Joel.
Mr. Weeks.
Thank you, Ladford.
I wanna say something about Mr. Weeks. Right. If there are two people why I have this radio station license. One is Mr. Weeks. He pushed me. He was in the Ministry of Telecommunications, permanent secretary, and I was sending the proposal, and he would say, no, Bing, this needs to be done different. This need to, you need to do it differently. So you send your proposal to the ministry, and then it goes to NTRC, and it goes to cabinet for approval. And Mr. Weeks was always the one who was there, and he would always cross it out. This need to be done over. This need to be done over. And a lot of people don't know the history between Mr. Weeks and myself. It's a family history. It's my mother, right? And I would always tell people, Mr. Weeks is here not just because of me, it's because of my mother as well, too, the relationship, the family relationship, right? Jules, ever since I had left Hot 97, I said, Jules, I want to get my own radio station. And Jules literally took it upon himself. And he did up all of the technical, all of the every single thing. He did it himself. That technical part of the proposal to get the license, he did it. And Jules and I will always have our call. We will war at times, but Jules did, and not because I'm on his radio station, no, right? But Jules know what he did to me to get the radio station. Now, Boom was the last radio station to come on stream in St. Vincent. The last license which was granted, the very last one. All right. Extreme was Mr. Maloney's cross country.
Yeah.
Right. But Boom is a license which was given to me. And it was because of people like Mr. Weeks and Jules, who actually helped me to get that licensing documentation to present it to NTRC, who would then send it to cabinet. And there are other people who are involved in different aspects of it. But Joel, it's that Boom story actually tomorrow, the 13th, would have been our anniversary.
Wow.
Yes.
Big this, and I think there's so much more to be said, but unfortunately we have to close now, as we have another team to come. But it's but I want to say something, and I'm glad to see you after quite a number of years. Good to see you again.
And my mom.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
And I've been listening to Boom.
I know.
Yes, frequently. But I want to say, and maybe use this opportunity, and I assume that P. John will be joining me when I say that we want to make this as an appeal. I'm just being presumptuous now, that the business community, including financial institutions, and as we're speaking earlier on about the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank providing partial guarantees, especially to the so-called underserved elements of business and development in St. Vincent and Grenadines, and the creatives is part of it, and communication and media certainly may, in some respect, fall under this category. And here is a moment, an opportunity, if ever there's a good cause for financing to get you back up on your feet, even if that the business community and individuals can even say, well, look, we are going to come chip in to meet 40 or 50% of the cost of getting you back on your feet. And then a financial institution will meet the other 50 or 60% with a guarantee coming from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, but it's important. It shows the spirit of Vincentian people. It shows who we are, what we are about, what makes us who we are. And if there's ever a good cause, I think now is the time to stand up and be counted. And I myself would like to be included among those to be counted to ensure that Boom 106.9 will be back on the feet. All the best to you. I know that April the 13th will be special. Just still celebrate, relax, and even though that you have other things to ponder, but at the end of the day, you're jamming still.
We jamming still. You know the biggest. My at this moment, Joel and Pigeon, my biggest headache is my staff.
All the more reason. How many staff you have?
Oh boy, it's a lot. Between Boom and IKTV, DJs that comes in on the weekend, full-time, part-time, it's a lot. That to me, because as I was, my mother and I, since she came, we've been having discussion. I would be okay, but my staff, I have people who have commitments, people who have family commitments, people have commitments to loans, people who have, who responsibilities. Mm-hmm. My headache right now is, I don't know. I mean, the station is on air, but there's no business generating. There's no money coming in. What? I can't. During COVID, I kept all of my staff and paid them full salary. I didn't put off anybody, didn't cut anybody's salary. Actually, some of the staff who came from another station who cut them and cut their salary came to me and I kept them full paid. Everybody got their full salary. And it is bothering me so much right now. This morning I woke up and I'm thinking, okay, at the beginning of every month as a business person, Joel, my head started hurting because I say, okay, radio in St. Vincent to me is a passion. I'm not gonna get rich off of radio. Right?
That's true.
I'm not gonna get rich off of it. I'm not gonna, but there are people, young people, talented people who, what are they gonna do?
Well, if you can come up with a plan which involves prepaid advertising and we have commitments from the business community, so they may take X dollars and so on, but they're prepared to pay upfront,
yes,
then you just might be able to raise enough capital to get the staff back going. You may have some equipment that you can use to get certain things done and so forth. And maybe if you come up with a program, I believe that several business houses will commit to a prepaid arrangement so that they can pay upfront.
While going through my messages yesterday, a couple of messages, I saw a message from Jomo Thomas of ECGC. He said Jomo Cato of ECGC CEO. He said, Bing, I'm not in the country, but please let me know what I can do.
There you go. There you go.
Let me know.
And there, I'm sure
I know there are others.
Well.
For example, I don't want to be political at this time. The leader of the opposition have been trying to reach me. He got in touch with somebody. He said, what's the value? What do you think is it gonna cost? That's Prime Opposition Leader Dr. Gonzalez. I got a message. What do you think? How much is it gonna cost? I asked Bing, find out from Bing how much it's gonna cost. Because my staff, Joel, right now, and my mother is who's really, she banks roll this thing, and a lot of people
care
don't
of them.
know.
You say that you are a tight-knit, close-knit family, so make the best of it, and we wish you all the best. And I say this on behalf of Israel. I did not mention at the beginning of the program, my fault, that Cecil Ryan, who is normally the host, sits in this chair.
Yes.
Unfortunately, has not been able to be present because he had to attend a funeral out in the country, and I'm sitting in for him today, and so on. So on behalf of Cecil and Pijan, and certainly, well, you mentioned about Jules and so on. He's not just by words but also by deeds, and everyone else. Certainly, we wish you the best. You have a good following in St. Vincent and Grenadines, that you have a lot of points that you think, and people will be looking out in your interests, and therefore, as a result, it's going to manifest itself in so many different ways over the next few days and weeks.
Thank you, Joel.
So very much all the best to you, Bing, and to Bing Mommy.
You can say
Esley. Yes.
Her presence is not just financial, but she brought that get up and go, Bing, you gotta get up, you gotta get going.
Well, as a mother, you will know that.
Yes, I have an appreciation.
She dropped everything immediately. She could have came in on Friday night when this fire was going on. She would have, and it's I told her, well, I said, Mommy, I don't want to get emotional. I'm unhappy it's a short one, so I don't have to get in. There's so many other things that I can get into, and I'm happy that I don't, because I don't want to, think. But thank you, Joel. Thank you, Pijan.
I want to wish you all the best, and it's kind of refreshing seeing this side of you. The human touch.
Yes.
You mean that he has been
Mommy and I were discussing that coming up. And there are two sides of me. Please just allow me to say this one thing. I'm a product of the teachings of Sir James. And Louis said to me, Sir James, and he said it to me as well too, but she said it to me yesterday, that things come in trees, especially devastating things come in trees.
Well, you've had the three.
Bad things. And she said, you had your first accident, then the second one on Wednesday, and she said the fire, and she said she's so happy.
That's it.
That the tree, that's it.
That's the tree. And so James always say that things come in tree.
So you have passed the worst.
I've passed the worst. So it's just, I'm just, and Jules and your team, thank you very much. And I'm gonna use your station to give a plug. Tune into 106.9 right now, and you'll hear boom.
All right. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, and all the best to you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
So Boom 106.9, Bing Joseph. It's good to see you, Bing, and we wish you all the best in the future. Yeah. So time has moved on, and we just have half an hour, but we also have two other guests to join us shortly, and we will be inviting them into our studio to be with us. Yeah, we are going to go back and talk about the West Asia or the Mideast crisis as we know it to be, but we're going to get a perspective from a Vincentian national and his associate, who actually is also a citizen of Lebanon, been born in Lebanon, but has been spent almost 2 decades of the last 2 decades in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as an important business person here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we just would like to get his perspective as well as on what is taking place there and what impact, as he sees it, as they see it, would be on business and life generally in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So it's a pleasure to have. I would like them to. They will introduce themselves. First of all, I would like to apologize again for the detain, but certainly be glad to have you. So just put the microphone on and then come close to the mic as much as possible. Yeah. So Oh, okay. So my good friend Isaac Anton.
How are you?
Today I'm good. Not so good at a week or so ago, but good to see you. I see you in Kingston. I see you at airports in different parts of the world from time to time. But now I meet for the very first time in the studio of WEFM. Good to see you. Welcome to Issue at Hand. Welcome to WEFM.
Nice to see you.
Okay, great. So if you can, for the benefit of our listeners, if you can just introduce yourself to the Vincentians who don't know who you are. Just tell us again who you are.
No, almost everybody know me in St. Vincent. I am live here over 40 years. So everybody know me as Isaac. I have a own business in St. Vincent, Miss Caltech. So we are operating for a long time. So most likely I live here more I live in my country. I came to St. Vincent, I was 14 years old. Because the war, I end up here. And the war going up to now.
So basically, the majority, you're as Vincentian as Vincentians and so forth. But so you're here pretty much as a young boy, and now as a man.
I grew up here.
You grew up here.
I have my family, friend. As my friend is my family now.
Yes.
I know people here more I know in my country.
Yes. So, but tell us again about the land of your birth, where you were born, and what is life like there right now?
Where I born in Lebanon, in North Lebanon. But first of all, life over there in Lebanon is like a party life, nice life, like LA, like a nice land to be.
Yes.
But the war starts since 1967 up to now, not stop. They're taking a break, they go back in. Taking a break and come back in. So that is what happened. Everybody end up leave the country and go abroad, either state, England, all about the war you see Lebanese. But now as things getting hard. Now the people now, especially in South Lebanon, you have at least 1.3 million people flee the villages. No one day. All of them, they live on the street in a tent the past 6 weeks because the war. We can't say, well, if you want to go to way back, you can take like a 3-4 days history. We can't explain exactly what is it, whose fault or who's not fault. But the main thing now, you have a occupied land in South Lebanon. And the people, innocent people on the street, children, old people, you know what I mean? Women, sick people, people dead in the hospital, no medicine. You know, it's a real hard life.
And this is, for many persons who don't, I remember reading some time ago that Beirut was referred to as the Paris of the Middle East.
Correct.
And so on, and it had a particular flair, particular life, and so on about it, and so on, that many persons in the Western Hemisphere couldn't appreciate, but it was a good, definitely a place to live.
Everybody, yes.
And where you had the mixed communities of Christians, and Muslims, and Druze.
We have like a 23 religion there.
23 different religions. And persons, by and large, have been living in harmony for an extended period.
Right.
But now today, it is not so much the case.
No, but it's still like, I mean, you can't have that and you have people occupy your land. So you have to have a peace, a complete peace. So if you don't have the peace, you can't have nothing. So always you have you get cut, you just touch it, and after that, but the cut's still there. You have to finish it. You have to make operation. You have to do what you have to do to finish it, to complete it. But now, I don't know. So they say Tuesday they have forced meeting, the government of Lebanon and the Israeli meeting in first time in United States to talk first time about the peace. But I don't know what's going to happen. That's the first time. But right now, in this minute, still bombing going on. So you can't live, people over there, like you don't have power, you don't have enough medicine, you don't have. It's hard.
Who who exactly are the Hezbollah, and how long has the Hezbollah been in existence?
You see, Hezbollah is a part of the Shia Muslim.
Shia Muslim.
They established 1982 when there was civilian war in Lebanon,
Yes.
and since then the backup from Iran, because
Yes.
and since the war stopped in 1990, they say no more fighting. So Hezbollah they left Hezbollah as a, what you call it, resistance, because Israel was occupying South Lebanon at that time.
Yes.
So they're fighting and they do good job. And around 2000, Israel left, and we get back all the land except 2 villages. So those 2 villages, they say that Syria own, no, Lebanon own, so you have to go United Nations for that. So since 2000 and up to that, they still give and take, or to give the ammunition to fight, not to fight, to get the land. So you can't say who fault and who right and who wrong right now. But what you know is the land is occupied by Israeli now, people on the street. So you can't treat 1.3 million because of a small group.
But it has been argued that the Hezbollah has been accommodated by the Lebanese government, that they have a role to play within the Lebanese parliamentary structure, and that they have a say, and that the government has not been able to control to any degree the actions of the.
No, they're in the government.
They are part of the Lebanese government.
Yeah, because they have the, we call it, they have it in the cabinet, they have it too, and they have the members of the people, we call it the Congress, they have like 40. So they have a politics and they have army. So it's a plain base, and was the government of Lebanon, they give them the right, they have the right from the government to protect the South up to end at 24. So they have the right from the government of Lebanon.
But we also are aware that the Lebanese army, they also had tanks and they moved out of the south into the north.
Because they're easy to target, because Lebanese army is not a strong army. Same like our in St. Vincent, our SSU. It's not a...
Yes.
Israel will take them in 5 minutes. So
they moved out.
So they have to move out to protect. So you can't stand up in a front of beast.
Yes.
So that is why you need the outside war to help with that. It's not like something easy to deal with.
Okay. As you know that there's supposed to be a ceasefire in place right now between the Iranian government and the Israeli and the US government.
Correct.
The Iranian government declared that their intention within their 10-point plan, that the intention was to include, any ceasefire was to include Lebanon. But Israel and the United States said, no can do. So Israel will continue. We also were told from another source that, from other sources, that Israel has its intention to expand the borders. In fact, it's difficult sometimes. The border study of Israel is really intended for tomorrow to extend. I can't remember the name of the river in Lebanon.
Litani River.
Yes, that's correct. And that would then become part of what they refer to as Greater Israel and so forth. And that maybe now is the time when they're going to forge for permanent long-term occupation, and long-term occupation becomes the virtual.
So there's what I use as excuse.
Yes.
There's an excuse. Okay, I want to protect my North people, the Israeli people who live in Israel, North Israel. The border of Lebanon, they say, okay, push Lebanese 10 kilometer or 20 kilometer, so leave that space to protect the people, civilians. there's an excuse. But now the Tuesday, that's what we're supposed to do. The peace, like the meeting, the first time there's a good thing to see what we can do, because Israel want Hezbollah nomination. Hezbollah want Israel to leave the country.
Yes.
So who's right, who's wrong, nobody knows. But you occupy my land, so to me, you're wrong.
Yes.
So you don't have excuses to say what to do.
So, okay, in terms of the Lebanese community, and sometimes you would appreciate the fact, as I'm sure that you know that from in the past, sometimes we speak about the Syrian community and the Lebanese community in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
But here in St. Vincent know them as a Syrian community.
As a Syrian community.
No.
But the majority of the persons from the Middle East who would have eventually come here and established a base and so on are basically from where?
From Syria is the 80% from one village.
Yes.
All one village in Syria. And Lebanese, same things, 80% from one village.
And that's to the north of Lebanon.
North of Lebanon. Because if you go back, you remember Frigidaire.
Yes, Fred Day, yes.
He's the first man, he's a Lebanese. He came to St. Vincent in 1935, I think, and established. And after that, you have the Moses and Cecine came. And after the follow.
Yes. From Lebanon.
From Lebanon and Syria.
And Syria.
Like my friend, he's from Syria.
Yes.
George is from Syria.
Yes.
From the same village as Musa and the other community.
Okay. How in terms of today, how is the fighting in Lebanon today and in the Middle East by extension impacting on your lives here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in the ability to go back and forth, communicate with family, and just generally to conduct business?
Because I still have my family over there, but every day you sleep and you wake up, you're okay, everything okay, anything happen, so you live in day by day. So you can't say what happened tomorrow, you can't say again happened tonight. You don't know. So you live in, you give your life to God and say, well, thank God for today, I don't know for tomorrow. So that's how they live over there. So it's hard.
And from your perspective, how do you see, and broadening the scope now beyond what is taking place in South Lebanon to the entire Middle East, including over to the Strait of Hormuz and so forth, this war on Iran, how do you see it impacting generally on commerce and life generally in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? What is your perspective on it?
You see, Hormuz is the main thing for the oil. And without oil, no countries will survive. Everything you need oil. For vehicle, for bread, for bakery, for factories, anything you need the oil. Now, if the Hormuz is not open, so you be shortage. Already they have a 20% of shortage oil already. So probably see it by next month. So if they keep closed, probably going to be more. So if now you affect some this, you affect us big, because we depend on everything from outside. Everything we import. We import our food, we import our stuff, everything.
Yes.
So everything now, when the shipping go high, everything go high. In St. Vincent, things will go high. Like minibus, the fare probably go from $2 to $5.
Although it is price control to some degree, but there will be pressures.
Because after you can't, people, if I have a minibus, I don't use it. If I have to pay for 1 gallon, let me say $25, $30 a gallon, but I stay home. So that will affect from small man to the big businessman.
But first, within the narrow confines of your business is not narrow at all, but certainly within the perspective of your business, and you would some of your goods are for many business people are made in the Far East, China mainly, and so forth, and they may come through California, Los Angeles, or
through Panama,
or Panama, and so forth. Have you felt yet through communication with your intermediaries within Panama whether there are any beginning signs of pressures on?
Not only we see it in the shipping from Panama to here and from China to here. You see the increase. Like for example, we used to pay from Panama, we used to pay 2,500 US, 3,000 US.
For a 20-foot container?
40.
40.
Now we're paying 5,600 US. Some companies 6,000.
And that's recent?
Yeah.
It's almost going back to like the time with COVID.
Probably it can be worse. And now China dropped to, now we say to 5. Now China go back to 10, 12, 14, same like COVID.
Yes.
So you can't see it because the war just was like a 4-5 weeks. So you have to give it at least extra 2 months to start feel the heat.
So you based on what you gather that you would see that this thing is going to have a prolonged effect.
Of course.
And it may be around for some time.
So that is why we need to do something like in St. Vincent, we need to do something. Like Barbados, what the Prime Minister in Barbados, she did nice thing. With the VAT, she put 3,000 and 20-foot for VAT and 6,000 on the 40-foot flat rate. There's a good thing. This one will drop the cost real low, especially on the food.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good things. So we need to do something. I don't know what is it, but I am not an expert with that economics, but we should do it today, better than tomorrow.
Yeah, I understand that from the standpoint that if, as you mentioned, that if a container is $3,000 and it goes up to 6,000, but you're talking about the freight.
No,
but the contents now. You're speaking of what?
No, what I mean, like what the Prime Minister of Barbados did, she put a flat VAT on each container, 20 feet, 3,000.
And the flat VAT is on the contents of the container.
Yeah, just flat, not like what we have here on the value.
Yes, okay.
So yes, this one to help drop the cost of the importation, like the food, everything.
Yes. So right. So by and large, because if we're dealing with a 16% VAT of something that is worth $100, and the items end up being $200, then virtually the government, what if they would get $16 on the 100, they're now going to get $32. So the government is going to benefit. So the government can take the position, well, look, I'm not going to impose get $32 on this particular shipment per 100. I'll be satisfied with the same 16 or something just marginally higher, and so on. So maybe these are things to look at and so forth. Now, I can't recall what would have transpired 5 years ago or 4 years ago in the time of COVID and so forth. But certainly, I think that the government has to make on the assumption that there's going to be this prolonged period, could be a prolonged period, that they have to take certain positions in place and be prepared for it. And do not wait until
things happen
and so forth. Don't wait until the problem comes tomorrow, that you can see the problem ahead of you.
Because you see the hurricane coming.
Yeah, exactly. I like that analogy. You see the hurricane coming,
and it's not doing nothing. So
you can't wait until the hurricane.
So when your house roof blow, you can't cry. You have to do something.
Yes, but then there are long-term measures and so on that can take place.
That's what we need, because how the war going, like a war going crazy, and especially like we in the Caribbean, we are small nations. I mean, you know that easy to affect. We don't have oil here. We don't have anything. No resources to depend on. So everything depend on our tourism. Depend about little things. That's what we're doing. So anything will affect us badly. So hopefully they will do steps. The couple months coming up, they'll do some steps to prevent the higher cost.
Yeah, equally. Well, we virtually have to look at everything, as we were talking earlier on about CARICOM the issues, the tiffs with Trinidad and Tobago and so forth. But Trinidad is still an oil producer, and Guyana, while Guyana just basically produces the crude, it's not. It doesn't, at this point, it doesn't have any oil refinery as such and so forth. But at the same time, they can influence any program in which they say, well, the rest of CARICOM, maybe arrangements can be placed where we can get finished oil
And cheaper price.
at a better price than, or if you just leave it to the open market and so forth. And then a number of other things that can be done, and so forth. And lastly, I do believe that there should be a collaboration. But you could very well you may have good reason to be cynical about what has taken place in the Middle East, given that you mentioned since 1982, these problems, and you went back into 1967 and so forth. But what is your view of a peaceful world?
You see, the people get tired. I mean, war over 40, 50 years. By the end, people need to relax, need to live normal like other different countries. But for me, my word can't say anything. Nobody can listen to me. Depends who you benefit, what you get from each time. You understand? So I can't say whose fault and what to do or what not to do. But for me now, the best thing, the Tuesday that they meeting, they should something come up with it to help the both sides.
Well, we'll monitor. It's unfortunate that the peace talks in Pakistan,
It's awful.
it didn't result in anything, and they could have an impact. The talks between Israel and Lebanon. That meeting is on Tuesday.
Next
Tuesday. We don't know what the outcome will be, but I believe sometimes it's contingent on the other. But we'll see. I would like to believe that Hezbollah is going to be a spoiler in the.
I don't know. You see, always when the big boys meet, the small one go. So if Iran and the United States agree for whatever thing, everything will be smooth.
Yes, unfortunately, they saw my 10-point plan and the 15-point plan, and they seem
same thing.
Yeah, and so on. So it's going to be a problem. So I just want to appreciate the fact that that you are in business, and you have been in business pretty much all your
long time.
young adult and adult life and so forth. And you shared a perspective that many persons didn't appreciate necessarily. And we're glad to have you in the studio. And we thank you for joining us. And all the best to you in your future endeavors. And we wish you all the best in the next days and weeks ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isaac.
Thank you.
And to thank you very much for joining us in the studio. All the best.
Okay.
So Pijan, we are now down to 5 to 1. We're pretty much coming to the end of the program. I don't know if we can just just take one call or two calls, if anyone has to call. Otherwise, we'll be wrapping up in 2 or 3 minutes. But if someone has a burning desire to call, even in this late, this as we would say, so late in the movie, we certainly invite you to call at 457-9997 by WhatsApp or 532-9997 by Digicel, or again 457-9997 by landline. But anything that you'd want to touch on, again, we spoke on the issue of the fire. And Pijan, what's your take on the discussion as you heard Bing Joseph speak about the fire? That is the origin or cause of the fire did not start in his studio at Boom in Paul's Avenue. But we know the result and where it is today. And we're talking about the fires that you mentioned, the conflagration and so forth. Is there anything that you can take away as a result? What does it say in terms of insurance and what you have to do, or whether or not other measures, preventive measures, should be taken for prevention?
Well, I was a bit surprised to hear that while the building is insured, the contents were not. And that is something that we need to pay attention to generally. And the other thing that struck me is, despite the devastation, there's still positive comments being made about the fire service.
Yes.
That it shows that they are in it and they're working, but perhaps the extent of the problem is too much in our situation.
Yes, and I hear what you say. It doesn't mean that persons are not there who are dedicated. They're trained, they work, but they work with what are within the confines of
with severe limitations.
Yeah, or the structure of whatever they have, and so forth. And it may not be the most perfect circumstances to address every particular issue, and so forth. And the question of the insurance, I think even when Beryl had struck, and it came out quite clear that it was less than 15% of homes and so forth. I think we're talking about homes were insured, and that didn't answer the question about contents. Because even if you say that 12 or 13% of homes were insured, contents could very well still be significantly less than that, because many persons just insure the house and forget about the contents and so on.
I am also struck by the rapidity with which the station went back on air. It suggests to me that technically we are somewhat up there when it comes to these things. It basically announced that one of 6.9 is on air despite the devastation. And I have to wonder how is that possible?
Yeah, so it showed that the interconnectivity between one entity and the next and so on. Because remember that the radio station is one thing to have your equipment in a studio and so forth, and then you have the transmission is another element all together, because you can actually share antennas and things like that. There are a number of things that can be done, but it's also fascinating that then the server is connected, is sent to Canada, and he takes over the operations for a short while, and certain messages can be done from Canada and so forth. And if there's any lesson to be learned from this, it shows that while radio stations face challenges and so on, the media, as we know it to be, this type of media, there's so many things that can be done to promote St. Vincent and the Grenadines touristically and otherwise. There's so many things that can be done and so forth. But at the end of the day, there's still certain essential equipment that you still need to have. Maybe as we're here now, like you have your microphones and so forth. Maybe the microphones you can, when you're done for the night, you just pack them, put them in a bag, and then you go home with them or something of the sort, and you have them in a safe place or something like that. But insurance and protection of property and contents remain very important.
And then there's something called the cloud. I'm wondering to what extent cloud storage play a part in keeping the station on air. You know what I mean by the cloud?
Yes. The only think this would be for data already recorded and so on, and that can be done and so forth. There are other things that can be done, but it's certainly there's other options around right now and so forth. And I think maybe just the media houses need to get together at some point. Like as I said, Jules Williams is central to all of what takes place in the radio station community right now, and maybe they should come together, use the opportunity in terms of what has transpired, to discuss what took place and where can media as a whole go in the future. I think we've now hit 1 o'clock, and we have covered a good bit. And I certainly would like to thank Isaac Antoon for joining us from Miss Caltech, and Dwight Bing Joseph. It was good to have him in the studio. I did not even realize, to be honest, of all the challenges and so on that he would have encountered in the recent past, and I know that he has other issues and so forth. And as he indicated in the end, maybe this is it. Sometimes things come in threes, negative events, and maybe he's had his share now, and then we can only look forward. And I do invite the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to respond to and rally to any call that he may choose to make for having Boom 106.9 back up on air fully and properly in the near future. Bear in mind that is not just only for Bing, and certainly we have to think in terms of Bing himself, but also for the staff who are also at this time relying on him and so on to address the other things that their staff and their family have to address and so on. So people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, begin to reflect on the possibility that you may be called upon to support the restoration, revitalization, the resurgence of Boom 106.9. We come to the end of today's edition. Cecil Ryan will be back next week, Sunday, and I thank you for this opportunity to have been with you, Pijan and Hiran, and those who listen to WEFM. Thank you very much, and all the best for the week ahead.
.9, the heart and soul